Welcome back to the I Try to Be Straight podcast with Susie and
Nate.
And we are here today. We woke up.
And we don't have an anecdote. I asked her if she had a funny anecdote to start the day, and we have none.
Zero.
But actually, what is the thing you're most like OCD about? I was going to say anal, but I don't know if we can say that.
Oh, well, you just did.
Yeah.
So many things, Nate.
What's the worst?
So
What's the worst
things.
one? What's the one you're like the worst?
I have to wash my hands whenever I get home from anything. Like, I could be outside for a little bit.
From hanging out with me.
No, it's just
If we shake
anything. I
hands?
just like the idea of my hands being dirty. It drives me nuts.
My worst OCD thing is probably that I don't have any, and I tend to let too many things devolve into chaos.
Oh, wow.
And then I'll have a moment of real clarity where I feel like I'm just going to organize everything, and I do, and then it devolves, and then I reorganize it, and it devolves. So my life is in a constant state of organizing everything and watching it slowly.
But do you feel like it's
disintegrate.
like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or is it like 1 step forward, 3 steps back?
No, I think it's 2 steps forward, 1 step
See,
back.
that's
So
good.
it slightly gets
it's
more
improving.
and more
Yeah.
organized.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
speaking of organization, we're going to talk about organizing
Organization.
religion and what to do when your religion becomes disorganized and how to reorganize it again.
Wow, I love that.
I know.
That's good.
No, we're going to talk about deconstruction. We have a great guest all the way out from Portland. He has written a really great book called Unclobber that I personally really loved. I read it about 2 years ago. It really helped when I was still deconstructing. And then he also wrote a book called The Shift, which goes into the next phase of that journey, deconstructing and how to reconstruct and find your faith again. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Colby Martin.
Bow, 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 bow.
Hey,
Is
what a
that better?
great siren. Thank you for that siren sound. So what the listeners don't
she
know
does
is that
now.
we tried to start this once already, and then I took us off on a tangent about the lack of applause, and it was really just, I tanked it from the beginning, so you had to start all over.
Loves
37
applause.
minutes of footage are gone. No, I'm just kidding.
He's a pastor. He loves applause, or was a pastor. But the need for applause never fully dies.
Oh, I don't even have a comeback for that. It's
just true. It's just true.
There is an innate human need to be needed. This is part of what it means to be human, right? So to not shame that part of us is really important. Yes,
Yeah,
that
no.
can spiral
Sorry.
That can spiral out
Get
of
him.
Wait, no, I'm just saying. No. I'm just saying.
Shaming me for shaming you. There's mutual shaming going on right now. This is a cycle. It's only going to
Shame.
devolve into something
Shame.
worse.
Two shames do
can't.
make a
Stop
right.
the shame.
No. It's just something I've
Shame
been thinking
Susie
about
now.
lately. I'll save it for later.
Yeah, let's save it.
I've been thinking about this, especially as you, in your intro there, talking about sort of reorganizing a kind of religious framework. Part of what has bummed people out, and maybe that's putting it too lightly, bummed people out, is they have noticed in a lot of religious leaders an overinflated sense of that need to be needed. And that has gotten out of control for many people. And that's a real thing. That is a real thing. And I would be lying if I said that wasn't in me. So where I think that can be, though, sometimes where we can forget it is, like I said at the beginning, that sort of natural piece where, no, that's kind of a human, like everybody needs to be needed on some level. So the fact that that's there is okay. It's when it maybe escalates into now we are seeking to extract from other people vampirically to take them because we are so filled with insecurity and we don't love ourselves that now we take from other people. Now we're starting to like cross into the unhealthy range, but just needing to be needed is just what it means to be human is my
so
thought.
good.
I could be wrong.
I take
now.
it back. I'm sorry that I made your needs not feel valid, and I respect it. No, I'm just kidding.
No, there's
no. That's actually
no
a really
apology
good.
needed.
That was a really good explanation. I have the same problem. I talked to my therapist about this like a couple months ago. I'm like, I think I like attention. Is that bad? And she's like, yeah, you just gotta keep an eye on it. There's a balance. It's all a balance. And to say we don't like attention at all would be, dishonest. It's
true. Yeah.
But I would love to learn a little bit about how you got now. Just a quick version before we get into the other good stuff.
How I got to where I am now. That's the
Quick
question.
version. I know that's a big one.
The quick version. Oh, good gravy.
I'm sorry.
So my motto, just BT dubs, my motto is why use 10 words when 50 will do. So I do tend to be overly verbose. So I will try to scale that back. How did I get where I am now? Okay, here's the, I was going to say Reader's Digest version, but y'all might be too young for, I don't know what your age is.
No, I know Reader's Digest. My grandma had them in her bathroom.
My grandma had them in her bathroom.
She one of your friends? Did you guys know each other?
Yes, she had that carpeted bathroom that I really loved.
Oh my
it was
God.
really nice. Let's say it like this. I was born and raised in the Baptist world, peaked in my faith life in the evangelical context, was a pastor for 10 years in the evangelical world, got booted out of the evangelical world in 2011 when I was fired from the church that I worked at outside of Phoenix once they discovered that my theology had shifted to be queer affirming. That was my sort of final exit out of the evangelical world. I'd been moving that way anyways, internally, but externally that was like, all right, and now you are done with me, or they are done with me. And so then the next 10 years I pastored in progressive Christian, post-evangelical, non-denominational spaces. And then that has led up to, for the last 2 years, because we closed our church that we started 2 years ago, we closed it. And so for the last 2 years, I have been kind of like an itinerant pastor. So instead of pastoring one church in a geographic location like I've done for 20 years, I'm now kind of pastoring churches all around the country, traveling and speaking and doing workshops with my material on Unclobber. And so that's a really short version of how I got where I am today. So we can unpack anything that you want from there, or we can move on to the reason why I'm here, which I can't wait to find out.
No, I know. We're waiting to find out. You know.
We're also waiting to find out, how did this guy get here?
I thought you were leading this meeting. Great. We'll sidebar. We'll be back. No, without getting too into it, because I know I don't want to get too into like the lengthy conversation we could have with Unclobbered, because obviously there's a whole lot there. But I think people should pick up and read that book on their own time, because it's a fantastic book. But I would say, what are just to touch on it, what are some of the biggest things in Christianity and LGBTQ where you saw red flags and felt like something was off with the way Christians were treating them?
Yeah. Thank you. So just for those who don't know, which is, I'm going to guess, probably 97.3% of your listeners, those who don't know who I am, Unclobber, what Nate has referenced a couple times, was my first book that came out in 2016. And the subtitle there is Rethinking Our Misuse of the Bible and Homosexuality. Now, why did I write that book? What on earth? Because I'm a straight, cisgendered man.
You're straight? Oh no, sorry. We got the wrong guest. Oh my God. Oh.
Cancel it.
Nate to shut up.
Shut it down.
You said you talk too much, so I'm trying to make you feel like you're in good company.
Isn't this podcast I'm trying to be straight or something like that? No, I'm just kidding. No, I am, contrary to much of the internet's attempts to insist otherwise. So that book came out of, I mentioned in my quick summary of my life that in 2011 I was fired from the church I was working at, and it was over this particular topic. Now, how did I get there? A couple years prior to that, I had began the arduous and earnest process of, I like to use the word auditing. The term deconstruction didn't exist back in my day, when I read Reader's Digest on your grandma's carpeted bathroom. And so for me, I talk about it as auditing. Like, I had this kind of Jenga tower of evangelical beliefs that had both been given to me from my family system as well as studied in my schooling. And I use the idea of the Jenga tower, because you know how in Jenga, which is just the worst game ever, you play it once with your kids, the thing falls over and you're like, all right, we are done. I'm not setting that stupid tower back up. Not worth it at all. Let's go play Twister. No setup required. And so you take out these blocks in Jenga, and then you have to kind of twist it and turn it and put it on top and build the tower up. But when a person goes through the process of auditing their beliefs, you pull out a particular idea, a doctrine, or a theological concept, and you get curious about it. You turn it around, you ask questions, you look at it from different angles, and then sometimes you hold on to it You're like, yeah, you know what? This is something I want to keep, but I got to be a little bit different. Like, it's just, it's not, I can't hold on to it in the same way. And then other times you find, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is not a belief I can in good conscience hold anymore, and you throw the block away. And then sometimes you take it and you kind of just set it on the table next to you. Like, I don't know what to do with that yet. I can't keep it. I can't toss it away. It's just going to sit there for a minute. So I'd been doing this auditing process for a number of years after I graduated college. And there was a point around 2010 when I finally wanted to revisit a moment that had happened in my life in 2006. What happened in 2006? Thank you for asking. I was going through the process of getting licensed in my denomination to become a pastor so that I could officially marry my younger brother and his fiance. And I remember studying for one of the final hoops to jump through was this interview with these seasoned ministers in the denomination. And so you had to know all the things about the denomination, the theology and the church policy and whatnot. And so one afternoon, I'm on my lunch break, I'm walking through the church lobby, studying the policies and procedures manual. And I remember getting to this line that said something to the effect of, practicing homosexuals cannot be members of the church. And I remember thinking, but what if they're like really good at it?
At being gay or at the church?
Practicing? Okay, forget it. Sometimes
practicing. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a slow burn. You'll get it later, or you won't.
They're
Doesn't
fully
matter,
learned
whatever.
homosexuals, not baby.
They are
practicing.
proficient at their gayness.
For the record, I'm still practicing, so we're not fully there yet.
Good for you. Good for you in the minor leagues.
Thanks, buddy. Wow.
No, so it said practicing homosexuals can't be members of the church. My thought was, and this was, again, I was firmly rooted in my evangelical heritage. I'm like, yeah, I get it. To be gay is a sin. It's not God's design. But they can't be members of a church. That doesn't seem right. And then I kept reading, and it's like, they can't serve in this position. They can't do this. They can't do that. And it was the first time, y'all, that I noticed this disconnect between my head and my heart. Where my head knew the right answers, but my heart could not comprehend that was the natural, or that was the outflow of those beliefs. Yeah. And so I sat with that. I'd love to be like, and then I decided, to study the topic and blah, blah, blah. But it was just like, right? It was more of a noticing of, man, that's interesting. So then fast forward, I'm doing this auditing process of the different beliefs, and I'm sort of kind of slowly disentangling myself from my evangelical heritage. And something in 2010, to this day, I cannot remember what caused me to revisit that moment. But at some point, I'm like, all right, I need to finally do something about this disconnect. And that was when I launched into a season of researching the Unclobber passages, which this term, for those who don't know, is the term given to the 6 or so verses in the Bible that historically have been, I would say, misused to justify discrimination against those who identify as gay or lesbian. Yeah. And I gave myself just full permission to dive in, and I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know which one was going to have to move. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was prepared to say, okay, sorry, heart, I know it sucks, but this is kind of where this is where your study has taken you, so figure it out, heart. Or, as was my case, it was more like, oh, wait a minute. We've gotten this wrong. The Bible does not say what we have been told that it says, at all. Yeah. And so that, around 2010, is when I came to be essentially an affirming Christian. But again, I'd love to be like, and then I hung a rainbow flag from my office, and but I didn't, because I was the sole breadwinner of our family, and it was my job, and I had a mortgage, and I had 3.5 kids. And so, at that time, 3 kids. And so it wasn't until 2011 when then President Obama signed the repeal for Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was the, gay service members can't serve in the military. That night, it was a Tuesday night, before I went to bed, I'm reading the news story about it, and I thought, well, this is good news. Like, this is a discriminatory practice. How great that it's over now. And the church that I worked at the time was real keen on phrases like, there's no room for discrimination in the kingdom of God. Now, obviously, there's an asterisk there, and they have some fine print. But
Right.
And so, in my naivete, I did what is really the most admirable, noble, wise thing one can do when they want to declare something about the world, and they go to Facebook. And I went to Facebook and I shared I shared an article announcing the repeal, and I just put 6 words: "I'm glad this day finally came." Just announcing the repeal, right? The article was innocuous. It wasn't. Yeah, and I don't know. It's not that I thought my church was equally celebratory of it. I just didn't think it would go where it went. I didn't realize that it was essentially a dog whistle to my community, that things had shifted in old Colby's theology over here. And so I wake up the next morning and I get to the office, and my boss, the lead pastor, is like, "Hey, I need you to take that down. My phone's been blown up all night." I look at the Facebook post, and it's just filled with all the comments you can imagine. Why is our pastor suddenly pro-homosexual? Why is our church advocating for the gay agenda? Which I'll say, I've been an ally for 13 years now, and I still haven't gotten my copy of the gay agenda. So
we're trying to find it.
We'll
too.
send you a copy.
Once you get yours, can you
We're actually
CC
writing
me on
it. We just got here, but we're actually writing it.
You're co-author.
We'll bring you in
exciting.
on it. You can
That's
write
lovely.
the forward.
I can write the forward? Oh, I'm so excited for that. That's what we need.
Honorary gay.
We need more things. I can be an honorary gay. Gay for a day, hashtag. Can we start putting hashtags at the end? Does that work?
No, we're done with hashtags. We won't talk about that, but
We're done?
You and my grandma.
Are hashtags,
It's just you and my
are they
grandma.
over? Okay,
it's you and my grandma are still using them, and my grandma is dead, so I guess.
Oh my God. I love your grandma. I can't wait.
Talk about that.
So I don't know why. It doesn't matter. I took the post down. I thought that would be the end of it, but then 3 days later, there was an emergency board meeting where I was brought in and forced to give an account for my theology on sexuality. And so at that point, in a room full of 8 men, which I don't know that I needed to say men, because I told you it was an evangelical church, so that kind of.
But it's usually
told you.
It's usually usually men.
We know the type.
Yeah. So, I came out of the theological closet essentially at that point, and I told them, yeah, guys, I would be in favor of same-sex marriage. I don't think being gay is a sin. I had a letter that I printed out for them in which I unpacked a little bit of my thoughts on the Clobber passage, and they said, okay. Why don't you take Sunday off? We'll fill your spot for you, and we'll see you next week. So I come back in next Monday, and they have a fresh off the press letter of termination for me, effective immediately. And so that, like I said earlier, that was my final catapult out of the evangelical world. But that began for me a journey of, because at that time, there was very few. I'm sorry, I've been talking for way too long. Let me wrap this up with 4 more sentences. There was very few resources that came at the Clobber passages from this sort of evangelical, and even in a sense, straight male perspective, because I've heard from so many people since the book's come out that it lands for them a little bit differently because it comes from someone like myself.
Yeah.
And what they mean by that is, they've read these other works from these other queer scholars, and they're brilliant and they're amazing, but they can't get the voice out of their head that says, but they're just saying that to justify themselves. And so coming from my perspective, for some people, this is not true for everybody. There's obviously those for whom they're like, I don't want anything to do with another straight white guy. Totally get it. But for others, I know there was a real lack of resources at that time for this sort of stuff. And so that kind of set me on this path of using the best that I can, my layers of privilege, to advocate for a more full picture of the gospel, for a more unconditional love of who God is, and a full embrace of all God's people.
And you didn't know any gay people then, did you?
No, I did not. I didn't have my first
crazy.
gay friend till 6 months after I got fired.
Wow.
No way.
Yeah, for me, it was really
awesome.
just a pursuit of theological and academic integrity. I was like, if I'm going to believe a thing, then I need to know what I believe. And that was what drove me to study.
I think that's the first instance that I've heard of somebody's theology shifting in that way, because most people shift because they know somebody that's come out or they have a family member. But that's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you were saying before, you felt like you're not gay, but you still felt like your voice is valuable. I think that's so true. I think we need people from everywhere seeing this for different reasons and from different worlds to make it seem more valid. Because it's just like, oh, we just want to be gay, so we're gonna find a way to twist the scriptures so we can have our evil desires. And it's like, no, there's a lot of different perspectives that think something's not right here. And I think then you went into writing the book Unclobber, and I imagine open this journey up more. I think it is a really good take on how even in traditional evangelical Christianity, these verses aren't really what the church makes them out to be. And I think that's something I realized through reading different things. There's a lot of unknowns, I would say, is what I realized. There's good arguments on both sides, and you could probably argue back and forth, but there's definitely no super definitive case against homosexuality, even if you are super traditional and more of a fundamentalist Christian. That's what I was realizing, I think, kind of what Unclobber does. But the interesting thing is, like you, I think after kind of coming to that conclusion that Christianity was so rigid on its beliefs about faith and so rigid on its, certain beliefs on this thing and that thing, when even with women and with, there's a lot of issues they don't really dig into. They kind of give you the comfy version. The pastors will give you the version that doesn't have too many of the contradictions. And so getting this upheaval of pulling the thread of being gay is not really as wrong as they say it is, and realizing the church was 100%, this is definitively wrong. This is a long ramble, but what I'm trying to say is, I think I got to the same place where it actually had me start pulling the thread on my faith in a lot of ways once I pulled the LGBTQ thread. So is that kind of what happened after that? Is that when you started deconstructing a little bit more? And I kind of wanted to go into what progressive Christianity is, because I know that's kind of where you're in right now.
For me, actually, by the time I got to an exploration of the Clobber passages, I would say I had already dislodged several core tenets of evangelical theology. But you're not wrong insofar as that is oftentimes the catalyzing moment for people to then send them on a kind of slippery slope that we were all warned about, away from this real rigid fundamentalist view of Christianity. But no, that for me, it was, I can still remember the very first theological issue that I decided, the first Jenga block that I took out, that I took a real hard look at and decided I cannot keep you anymore. And it was the eternal conscious torment of hell. That the idea that there is a God who exists that even can exist while there are humans suffering for all of eternity, that there's there's so many different ways you can kind of unpack why that is a demonic idea, especially when you take it to where the way that I was raised, which was the thing that sort of decides where someone spends eternity are the ideas in their head. The beliefs that they have.
That they're born into, that they don't really get to choose half the time. If you're in India, you're not going to be a Christian, just proportionally.
100%, Nate. When and where, this is a bit rhetorical, but when and where did we get the idea that the thing that God cares most about are the ideas that humans have in their mind? Think about that for a second. The creator of everything cares most, the thing at the top of God's priority list are the ideas that humans have. Where and why did we decide that? I've been a dad for almost 20 years now. My oldest will turn 20 here in a bit. And I got to be honest with you, it's just never really crossed my mind as a parent that, what matters most to me, that my kids have the right ideas about who I am. And like you were pointing out, if that's true, if God is of utmost concern, our beliefs are having the right ideas, what does that say about the billions of humans who've ever existed who've never even had access to that idea or to the required beliefs? Or what does it say about the millions of humans who've ever existed who have had some sort of cognitive or mental disability that they couldn't grasp that idea even if they wanted to? Or what does it say about the millions of people who've ever existed who have had some sort of atrocious, traumatic, suffering event or exposure intimately connected to the religion that has those ideas caked into it, to where they want nothing to do with, like, understandably so, they want nothing to do with it. And then God's going to be on top of that, be like, yeah, well, you didn't have the right ideas in your head. Come on, like, get away from me. So anyway, what was I saying? Hell. I just don't believe in hell as eternal conscious torment.
That was the thread that kind of started pulling apart your theology.
So that was the first one that kind of started to pull it apart. And then it was,
And then the gays. First it was hell, then the gays. That's a classic progression. And the gays going to hell. It's all together.
Well, at that point, it was like, well, I don't know where the gays are going, but it's not hell. Right? Because it's just, there's no hell for the gays to go no more.
So why not be gay? In other words, it's like, well, if you're not going to threaten me with hell, like, how are you going to tell me to be alone for my whole life? Because I'm losing you there. Once you pull the health card out, it definitely makes it harder to be celibate.
Do you have any daughters?
This will be one of the first times then that I sort of will publicly share that I have a trans daughter now, that one of my kids are trans. And I've kept her identity private for a while because I have a public life, and she doesn't need that. But she just recently sort of gave me the blessing to talk about that. So
That's awesome.
Dang.
I was curious because to get your thoughts on raising daughters in the church.
So that I don't have any perspective on, is how I would answer that. If for multiple reasons. One, they were all, born male, and so my daughter's now 18 years old, so not even, not raised in the church anymore. And then two, I mean, even the idea of our kids growing up in the church, there was only a very brief window there where our kids were attending sort of the traditional evangelical church that my first wife and I grew up in. So by the time we started our church in San Diego, the way that we approached children's ministry and families was radically different from how we were raised. So there was no sense of indoctrination. There was no sense of we're raising kids to be Christian. None of my kids identify as Christian. I don't know if they ever will. And I don't know if I have feels about that or not. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a part of me that needs anyone to be Christian.
Yeah.
It's like, so from that vantage point, I'm like, I don't really care if my kids identify as Christian. I think the only part that would make it interesting for me to think about my kids is, I wonder if they will ever grasp why I do what I do, because I think what I do is so foreign to them. They love and they grasp the part that I fight for, like equality for queer people. We march in the Pride Parade every year together as a family, or we did back when back in the day. But so they get that part and they think that's pretty cool. But the rest of it, they're like, "You're weird, Dad." You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So when you start to pull apart those beliefs and you start to change some of your fundamentals for Christianity, I think this is actually a pretty personal question for me, a personal journey for me, because I've had to be more honest with where my faith is at. And I just came to terms with my sexuality, and that started unraveling pieces of my faith, and I have a lot of pressure to keep my faith, and I've really been back and forth about where I stand. And so right now I am genuinely in the journey of, I don't know if there's so many facets of traditional Christianity that I just don't feel like are making people be nicer, making people be healthier, making people make good decisions. And there's other facets that I really love and really feel close to my heart. So this is pretty much a life journey for me. I've leaned into progressive Christianity more and more as I've just gone on my faith journey through this whole process. And I wanted to know, what would you say defines progressive Christianity for people that are on this journey with me? Some people, I think it's kind of a buzzword. Progressive Christianity can be really scary to some people. What are the some of the core elements. I think to me, a lot of it is holding more openness, but I'd love to hear what you would say.
Yeah. So my second book, the one, I don't know if you referenced it. Maybe I was just
Let's shift into the second book here. Let's just shift on into it.
And the subtitle on that is Surviving and Thriving After Moving from Conservative to Progressive Christianity. And the idea behind this book is I wanted to provide a kind of survival guide for those who have left or been kicked out of in some ways, or moving away from a more conservative expression of Christianity. And they're on a journey towards something. They don't really know exactly what. And so, Nate, you're describing it pretty well. They know that they want to be connected in some way to the heritage of Christianity, because like that still means something to them. They're not ready to totally abandon it, but they know it's got to be more open, more expansive, more inclusive. And so when I wrote the book in 2019, it came out in 2020, the term progressive Christian made a lot of sense to me, and those of us who were using it. Fast forward now, and that term progressive it's changed quite a bit just in the last 4 years alone, as it's become a real heightened political term that sort of what it quote unquote means now isn't necessarily how many of us were using it even just 4 years ago, which is, I often say about labels are super helpful until they're not, right? This is just true. Like at some point we will come up against the edge of a particular word or label, and then we'll move on from them. But so I'll answer why I used that term back when I wrote the book, and how I describe it in the shift. So in the shift, I talk about four aspects of what I mean when I say progressive Christian. Number one is to be a progressive Christian generally means, right, that you are affirming of LGBTQ people. That's kind of one of the biggest ones, where if you're affirming, you're going to be on the more progressive end of the spectrum. If you're not affirming, you're probably not going to jive with much else on the progressive end. Number two, most progressive Christians tend to see the sexes as equal, right? Egalitarian is kind of the theological term, as opposed to complementarian, where the men is like 51% of the voting power in the household. They're like slightly better than women. It's like, okay, no, that's dumb.
Just like a little bit though, just like a tiny bit.
Yeah.
This is misogyny showing.
I'm not.
Is that what I was smelling? Okay.
But like we're taller though. We're taller.
We're taller. We have more upper body strength. We can usually grow more hair. I mean, these are all really beneficial.
We should be in charge. We're the smelly ones in charge. What could go wrong? Put the egocentric, smelly people in charge. Continue. Sorry.
I think we've done well. I think our track record. Okay. Number three is that there is a general, and again, this is kind of describing those who would fit within this sort of camp of progressive Christianity. There's an awareness that we have had some issues with race relations, and that within the church and within our society, there's been some white supremacy issues, right, that have sort of been caked into our democratic way of life, and those need to be addressed, and we need to deal with that. And then the fourth is that is the view that science is not a science is a friend of faith, not a foe. Like we can cozy up to psychology and biology, and we can learn from science, and it's not something to be afraid of. So those are kind of the four, general markers for progressive Christianity. And then what I add sort of underneath all of that is those are all kind of adjectival descriptions of progressive Christianity. But in the verb sense, to be progressive is to kind of just believe in progress. It's to be like, movement and change and transformation is good, and we can do better and get better and be better, as opposed to its antithesis. Conservative is about conserving, like there was a apex of whatever was in the past, and we have to preserve and conserve that. And I don't want to put these up as polarities where it's all one's good, all bad's the other, because some things do. It's good to conserve, right? Some things have lasted for a really long time for really good reasons, and they're worth conserving. And some things are worth progressing on. So that's kind of my approach to the term progressive Christianity, but I can understand why it doesn't totally resonate with everybody. But I still find it helpful.
For me, I guess the biggest things in my faith journey have been not knowing everything. I think even with the Bible, there's verses that people will take literally and verses people will take as allegory. And I know I was always told growing up that everything was completely literal. Everything exactly happened as it did. Noah's Ark, Jonah and the whale, everything was completely literal, 6-day creation. And then also I was told that some things in the Old Testament we don't follow, some things in the New Testament we do different because it's a New Testament, new creation. But there's always these contradictions in different aspects. Like because I read the Bible as a kid, my parents paid me money to read the Bible. So I read through it a few times and I'm like, there's some really crazy shit happening in this first part. And they're like, oh no, but it's a new creation and God's not doing that stuff now. And I'm like, but still, like even now looking at it, I'm like, there's a lot of murder and some people were just chilling, just vibing, and they're like casualties in other people getting taken out for this or that. I think I don't think this is a definitive for progressive Christianity, but part of progressive Christianity in many contexts is the belief that we don't necessarily believe everything in the Bible is fully like literal. Would you say that's pretty common?
I think part of the movement away from a sort of fundamental approach to any religion is the appreciation for the fact that a literal interpretation of anything is really the most elementary, rudimentary. Like it's the first level of interpreting a thing is the literal interpretation. Yeah. It's like, okay, great, that's a good starting point. But now can we think a little deeper? Like, can we maybe push past that a little bit? And the going deeper, pushing past, getting curious, being open to multiple ways of thinking about a thing is really scary. Like that involves, that's super vulnerable. Because when you can reduce something to just its most literal, basic understanding, then you can create real clear categories of in, out, right, wrong, clean, unclean, pure, impure. Like these are sort of fundamental categories that humans can create to keep themselves safe, to know who's on their side, who's not, who's in the tribe, who's on the other tribe. And so you can understand that impulse to want things to be super simple and clear and black and white. But when it comes to the Bible, I'll just go ahead and say it, that was never, it's never really been how people of faith have held these sacred texts until pretty recently in church history. Yeah. It's just a very, very, very Western post-Enlightenment way to think about the Bible as a kind of textbook, right? Right. As just this flat document that we can go to get answers for how to live and answers for what to believe and all of that. Like this is a really historically, it's new to the scene in terms of how to think about the Bible, and it's convenient for those who need real clear boundaries. But once you just let yourself relax a little bit from that, you realize, oh, not only is there so much more here than just the literal interpretation, but it has always been seen that way. It's always been viewed like, I don't know. I was going to say, I would argue that there was no ancient Jewish person that really thought that Jonah was swallowed by a giant fish. Like that really was never the point of the story, was that it was a fly on the wall account of a thing that actually historically happened. Right. These were not the point of these stories. But I did want to ask Susie, what would be for you the over under on the dollar amount that your parents would have to pay you right now to read the whole Bible? What is that number?
She'd do it for free.
Like if tomorrow they're like, if they say $20 to read the whole Bible, you're probably not doing it, right?
No.
For $20.
What's the timeline? What's the timeline?
What's the timeline? What's my timeline?
No, I'm going to give you a month. So this is a cram
month?
session. Yeah. Are we talking with $100? For $100, if you read the Bible the next month, worth it? Would you do it?
Look, I'm going to be so real with you.
Be the real.
I try to read through the whole Bible.
Have you never done it?
Through the whole.
Oh my God.
I've read a majority of it, but when I got to Leviticus, I could not do it. I couldn't do it.
That shit's heavy.
And it like scared me. It's boring, but it scared the living daylights out of me. I couldn't sleep for a month. No, like truly, I like stopped. I couldn't do it. It really did something to me spiritually and mentally. And then I never read.
Not me reading it at 8. I read Leviticus at 8 years old and was just like, okay, this is what we do.
No.
So murder all the things, cut off all the foreskins.
So when you cut off all the foreskins, so when you have, speaking of foreskins, when you have kids and you take them to the pediatrician and they give you these charts, like your child's in the 85th percentile for height or the 90th percentile for weight or whatever it is, Susie, the fact that you have never read the Bible, like all of it, puts you in the 99th percentile of all Christians who have ever lived.
Wow.
You're in the majority. Yes.
Oh my
Think about
God.
this.
I'm special.
Prior to, no, I'm saying she is just like everybody else is my point. Like only 1%.
I'm special.
You're special. We need to really pause and go back. You're right. Thank you for clarifying that.
I just need that moment. Can we recognize that moment?
Can we cut this?
How dare we just
twice.
push
I read it
past
twice.
that? And you got paid for, you were monetarily incentivized for it. That puts you in like the 0.0002%. But anyway, the point is for all, up until the Gutenberg press in the 1500s, ain't nobody had a Bible. No one had Bibles. There was maybe one copy of an entire Bible that existed in any given village, and it was kept at the local church, and it was in a language that only the priest could read. And then and it's not like once the Gutenberg press was invented, now everybody's got the Gideon Bible in their nightstand. You still have this like long curve before it was ever. So my point is the Bible has not been an everyday part of the life of Christians for the majority of the history of our religion. So you're just like everyone else, the fact that you've never read the Bible. That's a very modern emphasis to be like, what it means to be a Christian is to read and study and know the Bible. Not really. Like it's cool. People can do it if they want, but it's not how people have done it historically. So I still want to know what's the number.
The 1 month. You have to read Leviticus too. You can't skip it.
Like $300.
$300. If your parents said, we'll give you $300 to read the Bible and you can't skip Leviticus in a month, you'd be like, cool, I'll do it.
You know what's so interesting is when I first became a Christian, I was so into the Bible. I was like, I remember my youth pastors got me this like study Bible with like the maps and all the like context and on the side of it. And I loved it. But there were some parts where I just like could not wrap my head around in digesting it. And I kept thinking it was because I was like a baby Christian and like that whole like, you know, you're drinking the milk and then you'll graduate to the meat, like that whole idea was really wrapped around my head. And there was some really scary stuff I think in the Bible that nobody was really willing to have a conversation, like a real conversation about. And then I got to things like, well, you know, why would God ask of these murders of just like random things, and like that just didn't, nobody was willing to have those real conversations with me. And so what I ended up doing was I kind of put the Old Testament aside, like you're saying in the Jenga thing, and really just focus on the New Testament because that's where the conversations were happening.
Better vibes.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. But I do find that there are so many Christians that when they come into their faith, they want to have these conversations, but nobody has the answers. And even I remember being in internship school and like people would ask, why is there no mention of dinosaurs in the Bible? And the answer given to us was, well, there are a lot of things that the Bible doesn't speak on. It doesn't mean that God doesn't care about it. So people would ask, well, why can't I get high? Why can't I drink? Or things of that nature. And they would be like, well, the Bible doesn't reference these things, but it doesn't mean that there isn't an answer for it. And of course, like you go to like some key passages and stuff, but there are always things that I don't know. How do you have a real conversation about these things if the people in charge aren't willing to say, I don't know, right?
Well, if they're not willing to say, I don't know, then you might not even be able to you might not be able to, right? So if a conversation is what you're looking for and you're just talking to someone who's stuck in the mode of must spit out right answers, And the reason behind that, and I can empathize with that because that was me for many years, is because right behind that is this fear and anxiety that if I get something wrong, my fundamental position in standing with God is at jeopardy, which means my eternal salvation is on the line. Therefore, I can't actually get anything wrong. So I've got to build this sort of hedge of protection around all these core things. And I don't even want to question the other things because then something might get through and you have this brick wall. You're literally talking to somebody that you're like, are you in there? Like, why can't you even entertain this? Yeah. And the reason is just fear. It is fear, and it's an understandable fear. So that's part of why in my work, what I try to do is I try to dislodge people from this idea that you've got to believe the right thing in order to be okay with God. Like, no, you are okay with God because you're alive. Like, just the fact that you have breath in your lungs, you're a loved child of God. You're good, baby. Like, you're good. Yeah. And the fact that you, as a young Christian, were reading the Bible and were like, what the heck? I don't know. What is it? That makes so much sense. How could anybody reasonably expect anyone to pick up the Bible and understand a damn thing about it? This thing was written thousands of years ago in cultures that are so utterly foreign to us today, written by people who have motivations and instincts and intent that we can only guess at, written in cultures that it's so different that it takes a lot of work, like, to try to even get close to understanding some things. And I don't think we oftentimes give that enough appreciation. We just like hand out Bibles like, and here, you're good to go. Sure, someone might stumble across something like love your neighbor as you love yourself, and you're like, even John 3:16, like, what the hell does that mean? For God so loved the world that he gave his only one and only son. Like, wait, God has children, that whoever believes in him will not perish? How do you believe in someone who's been dead for 2,000 years, that he will not, that he'll have everlasting life? What? You mean there's... Yeah, so even at every point along the way, you're like, this doesn't make any sense at all. And so, it just makes all the sense in the world that you would be so curious about it and yet be met with so much confusion, because it's a real confusing thing. Which goes back to what we were saying a few minutes ago about if the idea is that we have to believe the right things in order to be okay with God, like, oh my gosh, there's so many variables that are like, that's a big gamble on God's behalf. It's a big gamble. I saw a meme the other day where the cultural differences and the linguistic differences are so foreign between us and the world of the Bible that it would be like 2,000 years from now, some alien coming to Earth and digging up some text messages and seeing the phrase butt dial and booty call and thinking they mean the same thing. These do not mean the same things, and yet they're kind of the same words. So it's like,
one can lead to the other. You never know.
This is why context is so necessary to understand.
I've had butt dials go that direction. I'm just saying, it's not impossible.
I'm so proud of you. Did you really try to be straight? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I think that's also really interesting, coming from the context of joining faith later, of you coming to the Bible and being like, this doesn't fully translate into our modern lives, and everybody else being like, no, it does. You're just like, you're looking too much into it. Chill out.
Yeah.
Whereas for the rest of us, we're like, we've been programmed from age 2 that this all makes sense. You ignore the things that kind of contradict, and you're just, this is what we do. I had those thoughts way later, where I'm like, oh my God, why have I been ignoring everything? It's like I took off the ignore everything filter, but you never were given the ignore everything filter. So you literally came into this from an open mind. You're like, hey, this doesn't fully translate. Like, Leviticus is happening, and
nobody freaked out.
You're telling me this book totally fits. I'm like, what's going on? So interesting. And it's just like, okay, so for Christianity in this day and age to be like, this is a one-to-one perfect fit for our culture, our time. If you just jump into Christianity right now, you're like, okay, maybe there are things that we just should talk about. And the thing about Christianity is they don't like to talk about it in most facets, because then you're threatening it. You're pulling that thread. And maybe our faith shouldn't be this like wind of threads that's impenetrable. Maybe if we all weren't so afraid of people asking questions, we wouldn't be in the place that we're in today, where everything's so locked up and everybody's so angry if you poke any of this.
Yeah. So you've used the word a couple times, the F word a couple times, and I want to circle back to it. So faith, from the perspective of, and I write about this in the shift. One of the first moves I do in the shift is to try and recast for people an understanding of the idea of faith, because for many Christians, faith is synonymous with beliefs. And we think our faith is the things that we believe. Like so we have faith because we have these beliefs. And then what inevitably happens is people do the Jenga tower auditing. They get questions, they get curious about their beliefs, and they stop believing some things, they change beliefs on other things, and over time they end up thinking, I've gotten this so many times over the years, they're like, man, what happened to my faith? Because they look at this pile of beliefs and they're like, man, my faith just isn't what it used to be anymore. Or all these beliefs are on pause or no longer present, and they're like, I think I lost my faith.
Yeah.
But the thing is faith, I think, if understood maybe in a more holistic way, and then in the book I talk about the Greek word pistis, which is often translated as faith in the New Testament, but more accurately understood would be the act of faithfulness or trusting. That faith as a noun is something you can have and not have. But faith as a verb, which is what pistis would be rendered as, is something you do. Richard Rohr talks about faith is this tiny opening in the heart that sort of perceives that there is light out there, and you're kind of constantly turning toward it. So when I hear people talk about the beliefs that they no longer have anymore, that they're questioning their belief, I say, that's your faith doing what it's supposed to do. Like getting curious about your beliefs and holding your beliefs loosely, and that is faith at work. Like you are trusting in the greater good of the universe, of God, of source, of whatever it is. You're trusting in that so that you can work out your thoughts and your beliefs. Like your faith's fine. Your faith's doing great. It's your beliefs that change, and beliefs come and go all the time. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, each of us could probably name 17 things that we used to believe way back in the day. And of course we believed it. It's fine. We believed it because we were told it. We were trained in that, whatever. Beliefs, they come and go. But that doesn't mean that our faith is not working or is lost. No, like your faith is actually doing a really good job.
That's beautiful. So that's something so interesting, the Richard Rohr quote, because I find that so many evangelical Christians, they cut off the heart and the emotions, the actual body experience of it, and it's all head knowledge. Like we have apologetics, like how do you fight with somebody, from that head knowledge. So how do you align your heart and your head with your faith, with even theology? Like how do you even do that?
That's such a great observation. I think maybe where a person could start is they could start by appreciating that we are, as humans, we are like a composite of entities. We are, if you want to use the term Trinity, go for it. We are mind, and we are body, and we are spirit. Whatever three, if you want to throw soul in there, it doesn't matter. But so all of that is part of it. And to try to cut off any part of it is going to affect the whole. You can't, and so I, maybe you can relate to this, but I grew up in a tradition where feelings were to not be trusted. Yeah. Right. And they'd pull out the Bible verse, the heart is wicked above all else. Right. It's you can't trust your feelings. And so exactly like what you said, we were trained to it's just an intellectual exercise. Which, if that's the case, again, I keep coming back to this because I think it's so central. If the whole game is to just get the right ideas, intellectual exercise, we need to stop calling Jesus a good teacher, because he wasn't. He was a terrible teacher. Because a good teacher, if it's all about getting the right answers, would prepare their students for the test, right? Would prepare them to get the right answers. Jesus did not do this. He taught in parables, which are like inherently designed to confuse and cause people to think. And he didn't seem all that bothered when people were like, what does it mean? A good teacher would be like, well, let me tell you what, like exactly. No, he's like, let those who have ears to hear. And then even the few times that people did get the right answer, who he asked his disciples, who do you say that I am? And Peter says, you are the Christ. And Jesus affirms, he's like, oh, that's pretty cool. You figured that out. And I love, my translation here is, I love that you figured that out on your own, Pete, and that nobody told you that. Which is really, by the way, kind of a fascinating interaction that Jesus is affirming the fact that Peter came to this conclusion, you could say, of his own volition. He wasn't taught it by anybody externally. It was an internal awareness, which I think is pretty cool. But then Jesus goes on, and he does this several times in the Gospels. He tells people, okay, don't tell anybody though. Keep it to yourself. We have that alone should just murder so many churches' evangelistic budget, right? We're supposed to keep this to ourselves. We're not supposed to tell you know what I mean? So, and I'm being a little cheeky here, but the point is Jesus was really not a good teacher if the point was to believe the right things. So this whole idea of severing off our feelings in our hearts because we can't trust them and only making intellectual exercise is not appreciating the fact that we are beings of heart, body, mind, soul. We have to, all of it matters. It is overemphasizing intellectual acquiescence to particular doctrinal statements, blah, blah, blah. So what? That's not really the point. And then the last thing I'll say on that is feelings, the heart, love. How else can one know God but through love? God is love.
Yeah.
You can know ideas about God, and that's great. But to actually know the divine, to actually know anything close to the as Paul says, the one in whom we live and move and have our being, these are not intellectual things. If either of you have ever been in love before, it's not really an intellectual game.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a thing in here. So the to the extent that Christianity has just become a game of, getting the right answers, I think we have totally missed the point.
That's beautifully put.
Yeah. I was going to ask one more question, unless there's anything else you wanted to say before, but I had one more question for you, if that's cool.
I would love to add, I'm really curious where each of you stand at this moment as it relates to, and if you've talked about this on your show before, forgive me, but so if I understand it correctly, you both currently identify as gay.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. But that is not how you've always understood and seen yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So how in the world did you get to where you are now?
Well, I liked men. I guess that's all I got.
Blanket.
I like men. What else is there? I mean, it's a hell of a journey. I'm a pastor's kid, so I suppressed it for a long time, pretended like I didn't, gaslit myself into thinking I didn't, would do anything not to, went up for prayer over and over again, hope that maybe I liked girls too, and then tried to date women, and it never ever felt a spark, and I kept trying, and then finally admitted it. And so at 30 years old, I gave up and decided to kind of give it to God and say, I don't know about all this, but I'm going to try dating men. And I went on some dates and realized that was fully into it. I had never done anything else before that. I had literally just kind of lived a celibate lifestyle. And then, once I felt what actually going into romance was, I just couldn't believe that it was this abomination that I'd always heard it was. So
how did that coincide with how you thought and felt about God in that time? Did you think, was there a season in which you were like, well, I know this isn't what God wants for me, but I need to try it, and I'll just live in a state of rebellion and see what happens? Did that feel true, or as you were moving into that part of you, were you also growing in your awareness of how God felt about you, saw about you? What was that process like?
I kind of had to put it on pause because I just didn't know what to think, and there were so many voices of judgment in my head, and I didn't really know what was God and what was people. And so I kind of just stuck with tension, where I knew that I wasn't sure, and I was okay with it not being sure for a second, and just gave it space, and then slowly unpacked it with God. Kind of had some moments where I'm like, I'm not even sure if I want to connect to God right now, because I just feel so I just feel like I'm gonna connect with judgment, because so much of my faith was this push and pull of God doesn't want me to be this, God doesn't want me to do this. This self-hatred, this whole thing would tie into my faith. My faith was like I'm such a bad person, God, I'm such a bad person, God. And God would, like, I'd feel like a little relief, but also just always felt icky. So just getting some time to say, I don't even know, and God, I'm not even sure how I feel about you right now. And I think finally coming back, and I think realizing that if God is the God that I believed in, he is not the kind of person or kind of, God that would reject you for just acting on your heart's desire. And so I kind of settled back into, I think God still loves me. And then I didn't feel, once I re-engaged, I didn't feel like there was any change in my spirituality and my faith. The connection still felt very real and totally there. So that was kind of the moment where I started pulling apart all the different pieces and really deconstructing, and now feeling like my spirituality is back, and there's no that little tinge of punishment, shame, like repentance over and over of constantly, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad. This like drama cycle almost I had with God finally felt like it started to wind down, and it's just like, I'm just me and God's just God, and it's what it is. So that's kind of where we're at now, and still evolving.
What a journey. How do you feel about yourself when you tell that story?
Relieved.
Yeah.
It was exhausting.
Yeah.
The other side is exhausting. So it feels really peaceful, and I like myself, which is something I never thought I'd say when I was 16 years old.
Yeah. Because you couldn't. The version of who you were told you were supposed to like was an unlikable version of yourself. You couldn't like that version. No. Man. Yeah. So proud of you. I hope you're proud of yourself.
I am.
We're proud of you.
I am. I'm really happy to be happy. It's nice. Would recommend.
How about for you? Where do you find yourself? And
in all the things?
Like as you think about the version of yourself that was at war with maybe some of how you saw yourself on one hand versus how you thought you were supposed to see yourself. I imagine there was some seasons of tension there. And
yeah, for sure. I think when I reflect back, I can see how the war that I was waging with God wasn't a war that I decided to pick up. It was the war of everybody else in my head telling me what I should do and what I should believe. So when I was fighting with God, what I was bringing to him were these arguments from other people that I had heard from people on stage or books that I had read. And every time that I sat with God, I just felt this overwhelming peace of, it's okay to be you. And every time I would break down and say, God, but it's not because X, Y, and Z, right? But whenever I sat with God, it was an overwhelming sense of peace. And so much of when I first became a Christian at 15, 14, I had been given this, like, all you need to do is accept God into your heart and he'll save you, he'll love you. And so that's what I did. And then when I walked further into the faith, it felt like there was a little bit of a bait and switch of, you were accepted then, but now there's like this sanctification process. And that sanctification process for me was so much shame of who I was as a person, what I believed in, even things from like just like socioeconomic things. Like I was going to an affluent church, and it was like I wasn't wearing what everybody else was wearing. So like things like that just felt kind of like icky, of like I didn't fit the mold. And then like unpacking my sexuality was really hard, but also like the best thing that I've done. I feel like people, they love me for who I am, not for someone I'm pretending to be. And so even in the disagreements that I have theologically with people, it's been so respectful, and I'm not really a fighter. And so like, I'm not here to debate. I don't think I'm going to win anyone through a debate. And so I've just chosen to live my life as who I am. And I think what is that quote? You attract more bees with honey. Yeah. Like I think that's been the truth for my faith walk, at least. But yeah,
that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing.
And now we've made this super team.
We're here. We're it's kind of cool.
Curious about your walk, and if this is still like really raw and early, then no need to share. But what has it been like walking through with your daughter now, that process?
Yeah, so she revealed this part of herself about 2 years ago to her mom and I. And yeah, what do I want to say about that? I want to say that we in our family, one of our primary goals as parents raising our kids was to raise all of our children in a context in which they never questioned their belonging to the family.
Yeah.
They didn't have to perform anything. They didn't have to be or do anything. That they, just as they were good and enough. And so I think part of what that allowed, and I don't know that we did it all that well, but that was our goal. And so I think it allows our kids to have some freedom of exploration, to know that they can, they can be curious about themselves. They can be curious about others, and they're only going to be met with the space to do that. They're not going to be met with judgment or condemnation. And so I was delighted that she chose to share that part of her life with us, and have tried to since then continue to be in a place of support and love and encouragement and resource. I mean, I just had dinner with her the other night, and I said, for what it's worth, in my line of work, I know a lot of trans people and I have a lot of trans friends. And so me trans friends, that's two trans friends. If you ever need to, I can connect you with all sorts of people who have gone through these kinds of experiences, because it's clearly not something I can directly relate to. But yeah, I think that's the two main things, is just the sense of belonging that we've always tried to instill in our kids, and then the safety and the freedom to explore in a context of compassion and understanding.
Wow. Man, kudos to you as a dad. Like, seriously.
Yeah. Thanks.
For real.
That's awesome. I'm doing my best.
I don't know if there's anything else to say. I think we covered
really
a lot.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Thanks so much for being here. I think a lot of people in our world are really figuring out where their faith lies. A lot of us weren't really, some of us didn't choose to start this journey. Some of us had it chosen for us just because we decided to act in our sexuality, and then all of a sudden we're thrust into this faith journey. That kind of is me thrust into. You had it a little bit different, but I think having people like you that are taking these steps is really helpful for those of us that are all of a sudden here, and it's nice to know someone's already on this path. So we appreciate what you're doing for the LGBTQ gay agenda.
You've saved some lives, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you both. And maybe I'll just say this in closing, with all the heads bowed and the eyes closed. No, I'm just kidding. Is this the altar call moment? It's happening. No. But I will, in all seriousness, let me just, if I can say one last thing to you about that,
Absolutely.
Nate, and to anyone else who might be kind of in that similar place of auditing their beliefs, or maybe they use the term deconstruction, or maybe they're just like, I don't know what the F I think anymore. When I do this, when I talk about this, I'll set this up as like a bit, as a joke. I won't do that here, but because it doesn't really work in this context. But I'll be like, man, I just really wish somebody would have taken advantage of the opportunity of having Jesus right there in front of them. I wish somebody would have gotten him on record and just asked him straight up, what is the most important thing? I wish somebody would have just asked him, like, what is the most important thing? Because there's so many things to believe and so many laws. I wish somebody would have said, Jesus, what matters most? And obviously the joke is people did ask him that, and he did have an answer for that. And so to you or to anyone else who might be having those moments of anxiety and those senses of is it okay if I pause on this belief for a bit, or change that idea, or don't go to church for a while, or never read my Bible again, or like, is it okay? Just come back to, when asked what was the most important thing, Jesus's answer was pretty clear. It's love. It's love. If you love if you have a place that in your heart and in yourself can live from a place of love for others, for yourself, for God, whatever that might mean, and that's probably going to change for you all throughout your life. It really is the thing that seems to matter most. Yeah. So you can really let the rest of it just be what it is and be okay with it, because it really is about love.
And with that, we'll pass the buckets.
Yeah. And now, how much do you love your church? Let's find out.
My Venmo handle is.
If you want the love to keep spreading, 10% should go to your church.
No, but with that, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? All the things.
Oh, sure. They can just Google me. I consume most of Google's front pages because my name is pretty unique. Although, slightly not fun fact, about 3 months ago, there was a guy in Kentucky named Colby Martin who horrendously committed this atrocious crime, and I won't even describe it here, but it was so bad and so and so I would have morons come onto my YouTube channel and be like, "It's terrible what you did to that woman," and I'm like, "Really? Like, you really think I'm the same guy?" Anyway, but I think his news stories have all disappeared. So anyway, you can just Google me. Instagram at Colby Martin, TikTok, something like the Colby Martin. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Colby Martin. I'm out there. I've got a website that's got a hub for all my things. And then I write at perspectiveshift.co is my Substack.
Love it.
Yeah. We'll link all that stuff in the bio as well.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This was a very fun conversation.
Thanks for inviting me. I think you invited me originally on TikTok, which I don't really use or engage with very much. So I don't know how long it took me to reply to you, but apologies if it sat there for a while.
That's my bad. I didn't realize you were like a Reader's Digest kind of
Facebook
generation. So I should have. If I knew, then I wouldn't.
Can you send me a letter?
Yeah. If we got one on again, we'll use USPS. So it'll be or a fax. You probably. I can do fax if I need to. I'll try. I'll look for you.
You're killing me.
No, thank you so much for being on here. You obviously do not look old. You look great. So, well
Thanks,
done.
y'all.
you look just fine.
Looks just fine. Hey, can I get that testimonial? Can I put that on my website? Looks just fine.
Looks just fine.
He looks all right.
He looks fine.
He looks decent.
It's fine.
He looks okay. He could look worse. And that's
it. We're gonna cut Nate off before he says something.
Stop before no one wants to come on this, because apparently I just roast guests because I don't like to have guests. I don't value them. We're gonna move on. Thank you all for watching. We're happy you were here. This was a fun one.
Yeah.
And
we'll see you next week.
Next time, we have a Discord if you want to chat with us. Like and share, that helps a lot. And we just started Patreon. We're going to be doing monthly video chats. If you want to join in on those, jump on our Patreon. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Peace.